Welcome to the Mills Knows Bills podcast. My name is Mills Bender. I'm the founder and CEO of Mills Knows Bills, where we help you, variable income earners, master your money in 90 days. The point of this podcast is to help you make the most of your fluctuating income so you can stop living paycheck to paycheck, pay off your debt twice as fast, and get on track toward reaching both your personal and professional financial goals. Now, as I continue to grow my team here at MKB, you may have some guest hosts from time to time. However, our goal does not change. Whether we're bringing in a guest speaker, having an in-depth conversation about our personal finances, or talking about a topic that is of interest to you, our goal is to help you master your money. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Mills Knows Bills podcast. I'm your host, as well as founder and CEO of Mills Knows Bills, Mills Bender. And with us today, we have another guest who's going to ask a burning financial question. And at the end, he might even solve a little problem that many of you struggle with. Many of my Vin Henrys out there, I'll say. So with that said, John, please take a moment, introduce yourself, and then we'll get started with asking that question.
Yeah, absolutely, Mills. Thanks a lot for having me on. So my name is John Sansoni. And I've been professionally selling in the Dallas, Texas area for 34 years.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so with your sales experience or with your burning financial question today, what can I answer for you?
Absolutely, Mills. So recently, my wife and I were fortunate enough to acquire a lake house. And we're not ready to do it yet, but we realized that, hey, this is an asset. And at some point, we could start monetizing it. Neither of us have a background in doing like short-term rental or anything like that. We've certainly stayed in them over the years, but any insight you can give us on like how to take this home and make it a short-term rental would be fantastic.
Sure. I would love to help as much as I possibly can. There's a couple factors that I would encourage you to look at before you decide which path you're going to go down. Of course, there's Vrbo, there's Airbnb, and there's also some off-site, not as popular websites that you can use as well. But the first thing I would say is if this lake house is in a community, see if you even have the ability to rent out that lake house in the first place. I know some communities are very strict on that type of thing. Right. So if that's not a barrier to entry, then I would take a look at, well, are there any other properties on those types of popular websites right now, like Airbnb or Vrbo? What are they going for? See if you can reach out to those owners and get an idea for what their return on investment is. Because if it's not what you want it to be, maybe you explore a more longer term rental instead, or doing something on your own outside of those websites. Those websites do take fees and whatnot. And so I would do a little bit of research and see what other homeowners are generating on their properties, how you can possibly duplicate that or make it even better. And then, of course, come up with a financial plan for it. If you have a mortgage on this property, if you have any maintenance expenses, cleaning expenses, anything that you can think of in order to build this property to the point of renting it out, look at what then you need to make for the break even. Is that break even realistic given those platforms? What do you need to do in order to generate that revenue? Do you need to market your property? How are you going to market it? Is it if it's outside of Airbnb and Vrbo, right? So a lot of those reasons I would kind of nail down first. And then once you have that specific plan for the lake house alone, I would look at how that impacts your personal finances as a whole. So a lot of times what I see is that people have this idea of, oh, I'm just going to rent it out, but they don't take into account the time commitment and if you are willing or not to commit that time. If you're not, you need to factor in the cost of a property manager, right? You need to see if all of the effort is going to give you the return that you would like on your personal tax return itself. And then, of course, if this is something that you and your wife decide to move forward with, what I would encourage you to do is make sure that you keep track of every expense that you are putting into that property. So that way, at the end of the year, you can give it to your CPA and say, hey, this was all of our expenses. Put down the date, the vendor, like Lowe's or Home Depot, whatever it may be, what the item was that was purchased, and the total. Give it to them and say, hey, this is all of the money that we put into the property. Then this is all the money that we made off of the property. And your CPA then is going to look at all the information and see the best way for you to mitigate your tax liability. So that way you're getting the best of both worlds as much as you possibly can. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, it does. You did a great job.
Awesome. Do you have any other follow-up questions about the lake house?
Probably more insurance related. I would think I would need like a liability insurance policy above and beyond a normal policy. Would that be correct?
Yeah. So when you do an investment property, what I would say is call your homeowner's insurance company and say, hey, it's a rental. I need a different type of policy. You still want to make sure that you're covering the contents of your home, especially if you're doing Airbnb. Whereas, for example, like I owned a rental property, but it was not my furniture in there, right? So my homeowner's insurance policy was a lot lower than when I was living in there because I had no contents covered, right? You still want to make sure that the contents are covered as well as any liability on that property, and make sure that you have enough liability coverage for that PNC. So that way you can make sure that you're not putting yourself at a disservice. Bringing up the insurance side, another factor that I would consider if you've not already done so is if you have any fixed expenses on the property, whether that's a mortgage or a property manager, anything that's consistent, have a separate emergency fund for that rental. Because if there's a few months where you don't have any rental income coming in, you would rather not have to tap into your personal expenses to cover the cost of that, right? So those are just a couple of things that I would encourage you to do to safe harbor just a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
My pleasure, of course. So now that I've helped you and I were chit-chatting before we hit record, how can you help business owners? We were talking about your sales and making sure that you're not selling from a place of desperation. What does that look like? Tell us more.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, Mills. So the concept is called power selling. And when I first say that, people think it's like putting somebody in a headlock and getting them down to the ground and saying, give and you get the business. But I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is sell from a place of strength, not weakness. And how you sell from a place of strength, not weakness. And I liken this back to my software days. Is you pocket a couple of big commission checks and you don't spend them. And on the lacking months when you don't sell, God forbid that happens though, that's how you pay your bills. And it's a different mindset. And when you're working in a business where you're primarily most people are commission based. Selling from a place of power like that is so amazing because yes, you want to close business when it's presented, so on and so forth. But when you're not desperate, like there's even a saying in my business, people have commission breath. Like they're so focused on selling something that they don't even care what they sell you. Like they just want to ring the bell. And that's how you sell the least, because then you're going after low hanging fruit. You're not really identifying the big picture of what you could sell this individual because you're not asking the right questions because you're desperate.
That's so true. And so you have a lot of years of experience, as you said earlier in this episode. Who's your ideal client? Who do you like to work with?
Well, I teach professional sales. So my ideal client is somebody that wants to learn professional sales, truly learn how to professionally sell. Not somebody that's just looking for bluebird business, but somebody that really wants to learn how to prospect, how to cold call, how to build relationships and how to close business and how to do it professionally. That's who I'm looking for, whether it be a salesperson or it be a sales manager that, or, director that wants to teach their people. Those are my ideal clients.
So if anybody is listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube and fits either that salesperson or sales manager demographic, and they're interested in learning more about how you can help them, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Best way to reach out to me is either on my LinkedIn profile, John Sales Warrior. Easy to reach out to me there. Or you can reach out to me on my website, saleswarriorinspire.com.
Love it. So if y'all fit that demographic and you want to learn more about John, go to the show notes below. Be sure to check him out on LinkedIn and his website. Both links will be there for you to easily click on and navigate to learn more. John, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to ask your burning financial question. I wish you the best of luck with your lake house, and I hope to see you soon.
Oh, thank you.
If you stuck around long enough to get to this part of the podcast, I just want to say thank you. We really appreciate the fact that you take the time to listen to the content in its entirety, because we do pour our hearts and soul into every single piece of content we let out. So thank you for being here. I want to let you know that if you're in a space where you're trying to level up your finances, you can always snag some free resources on our YouTube channel, Instagram. You're always welcome to email us at info@millsknowsbills.com. And if you're interested in taking part of any of our coaching programs or courses, be sure to mention our podcast to get a special discount, okay? We want to make sure that you are making the most of your financial investment. Again, I am your host, Mills Bender, founder and CEO of Mills Knows Bills. Thank you so much for listening. And just because I gotta, here's a quick little disclaimer. I want to remind you that this podcast is strictly discussion, okay? It's general, it's educational in nature. We don't provide any specific tax, investment, legal, or financial advice on this podcast with respect to any particular individual, okay? So if you're in a situation where you need specific help, please consult your own advisor regarding your unique situation, because it's not a one-size-fits-all.